when creating us, God could have made us love him. But if he had, his relationship with us and ours with him would be meaningless. And God wants our relationship with him to be real. So when he created us, he took a risk, and that risk was setting us free, of giving us the freedom to choose. Now, the first instance of this freedom to choose love was, as you might expect, made by the first humans, Adam and Eve. They were given one and only one instruction. Don't eat from this one tree. The tree in the middle of the Garden of Eden stood as the great authenticator that the love between the first humans and God was real. But then they chose to eat the fruit from that tree. They made the conscious, purposeful decision to go against the love, against the relationship. And then all hell broke loose. The decision the first humans made to reject God's leadership and ongoing intimacy within a relationship with him radically altered God's original design for how the world would operate and how life would be lived. Theologians have termed this the fall, and they talk about how we now live in a fallen world. We live in a world that is not the way God intended it to be. That became the day death and dying were born into the human race. Their choice forever stained the relationship of loving intimacy that had been intended for eternity within God's heart. And today we make the same choice repeatedly to turn away from God, to choose to do as we please, to live by our own rules and our own guiding moral compass. The results of our collective choice to turn away from God run so deep that it isn't just moral sin and evil that we face, but natural evil as well. The whole world is sick. In the Bible, we're told that the whole creation has been groaning. This is why we have earthquakes and tidal waves and volcanoes and mudslides and wildfires and birth defects and famine and AIDS. Our world is the groaning planet, Philip Yancey once wrote. And he's an author who's actually invested much of his life in exploring issues like these. The pain and suffering and heartache, he writes, is a huge cosmic scream that something is wrong, that the entire human condition is out of whack. These are far from original insights, much less contemporary ones. The medieval Christian philosopher Boethius aptly noted that evil is not so much an infliction as it is a deep-set infection. This raises a pretty provocative point. God is not behind what is tragic with this world, much less responsible for it. People are. Or as G.K. Chesterton once wrote to the editor in response to a request by the London Times for an essay on the topic, "What's Wrong with the World?" He wrote, "Dear sir, in response to your article, 'What's Wrong with the World?' I am." Yours truly, G.K. Chesterton. Yancey was once contacted by a television producer after the death of Princess Diana and asked to appear on a show to explain how God could have possibly allowed such a tragic accident. And in response, Yancey asked the producer, could it have had something to do with a drunk driver going 90 miles per hour in a narrow tunnel? How exactly was God involved? From this, Yancey reflected on the pervasive nature of the mindset that our actions are actually an indictment of God. For example, when boxer Ray Mancini killed a Korean boxer in a match, the athlete said in a press conference, "Sometimes I wonder why God does the things he does." Or when, in a letter to a Christian family therapist, a young woman wrote how she became pregnant while dating a man and wanted to know why God allowed that to happen to her. Or when South Carolina mother Susan Smith gave her official confession to pushing her 2 sons into a lake to drown, she said that as she released the car, she then went running after it as it sped down the ramp, screaming, "God, no, God, why did you let this happen?" Yancey raised a decisive question, I think, by asking exactly what role did God play in a boxer pummeling his opponent, a teenage couple losing control in a backseat, or a mother drowning her children? God let us choose. We did, and our choices have brought continual pain and heartache and destruction. Our self-destructive bent seems to know no bounds. On a more personal level, here's how one psychologist described it. He said we drink too much, or we gamble compulsively, or allow pornography to control our minds. We drive too fast and work like there's no tomorrow. We challenge the boss disrespectfully and then blow up when he strikes back. We spend money we don't have and can't possibly repay. We fuss and fight at home and create misery. We toy with the dragon of infidelity. Then, when the wages of those sins and foolishness come due, we turn our shocked faces up to heaven and cry, "Why me, Lord?" In truth, we're suffering the natural consequences of dangerous behavior that is guaranteed to produce pain.